Great. We have an awesome speaker coming up next. We have Arianne-Elise Harris. Arianne is a biodiversity PhD student in the Co-operative Republic of Guyana. Through her research, she's discovered how resilient Guyana's wildlife is and just how important it is to study and conserve these rich communities. I don't know much about Guyana, but I'm going to bring Arianne in here so I can learn a little bit more. Great to have you here. Hi, welcome.
Hi. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to learn a little bit about the wildlife in one of the smallest islands. Is that right? I guess I'll hear more about it.
Yeah, I have it all in the presentation, but Guyana is one of the smallest countries in the northern part of South America.
All right, let's see what animals and biodiversity and wildlife lives there. If you want to pull up your share screen, I can add it in.
I will do that right now.
Great. All right, we're seeing it here. Perfect. And you want to click present?
Okay. Can you see the screen fine?
We can see the screen. If you can click present or yes, presentation mode, so we can get the full screen.
Yeah. Is that good now?
Not quite there yet. Maybe in we can do file or slideshow up on the top there next to animations.
Okay.
And then from beginning, perfect.
Great. Technology.
Technology.
All right. So thank you once again for having me, Global BioFest. I am going to be presenting on a topic that's very close to me, which is my home country, Guyana, and a place that I like to call the land of many wildlife communities, because Guyana is known as the land of many waters. So jumping right into it, who am I? So as you might have guessed, I'm a Guyanese. I'm 25 years old, and I study biodiversity of logged rainforests, so particularly population ecologies of sea disperser species, so birds, bats, and large mammals. And as a fun fact, I love art and animation. I like to say that my blood consists of 50% conservation and 50% art. So there's like literally no in between. So Guyana, never heard of her. That's completely fine. As a quick rundown of what Guyana is, so it's a country located on the northern side of South America. Its neighbors are Venezuela, Suriname, and Brazil. And its independence is on the 26th of May. It became a cooperative republic on the 23rd of February. The holiday to celebrate this is known as Mashramani, which is indigenous rooted word meaning celebration after hard work. There are 5 ethnic groups in Guyana, which makes the culture something to really experience and enjoy. And the national dish is pepper pot. If you ever find yourself making it down to Ghana after COVID, make sure to try out the national dish. Ghana has 5 natural regions. So we have the low coastal plain, which is where the capital Georgetown is located. And it has the majority of agricultural activities occurring there. Then we have a hilly sand and clay region where we find a lot of Ghana's mining activities occur there. The forested highland region, which as would imply a lot of the forest area occurs there, and the interior dry savannas, which combined with the forested highland regions has a lot of the mountain ranges and tepuis. There are also 4 major rivers, with the Essequibo being the longest. And then if we look at a quick map of Ghana, you'll see that in Demerara Mahaica, which is region 4, so there are 10 administrative regions in Guyana, and region 4, which is where the capital is, lies along the low coastal plain, which is directly adjacent to the Atlantic Ocean. And this is the capital city, Georgetown, absolutely beautiful place, one of the most diverse.
You know what, we're actually still on the first slide of your presentation. It's not moving along here. Let's see if we can fix that. Maybe.
I'm just going to pop in for a sec here, Brianna.
Great.
Arianne, if you can hear me, can you stop the screen share?
Sure. I'll do that.
Perfect. Yeah. And this time hit screen share. But this time when the option pops up, choose the one for your entire screen. It'll be a lot easier to go full screen with that one.
Okay, perfect.
I have the tech wizard coming in.
I know. Is that much better now?
Let's see. Let's try to give it a go here. If we play from the beginning, And we're in full screen. And if we can go to the next slide. Oh, perfect. We're rolling. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. So just a quick going back over what Guyana is. So we talked about Guyana's independence when they became a cooperative republic. The holiday to celebrate that is known as Matrimani. There are 5 ethnic groups in Guyana, which makes the country very culturally dynamic and diverse. The national dish is known as pepper pot, if you ever make it down to Ghana, like I said, make sure to try it. There are 5 natural regions, the low coastal plain being where the country's capital, Georgetown, is located. And then there are 4 major rivers, with the Essequibo River being the longest, which it's about 1,000 km long. So if you look at the quick map of what Ghana looks like, the capital, Georgetown, is located here in Region 4, known as Demerara-Mahaica. There are overall 10 administrative regions in Guyana, and the 4th administrative region is located along the low coastal plain, which is directly adjacent to the Atlantic Ocean. And then with this picture, it's a picture of Georgetown. So it's a very, very beautiful capital city. And once again, if you ever make it down to Ghana, best place to go. And then I'll tell you more about the rest as we move on. So why do I call it the land of many wildlife communities? Well, I could go on about why that is, but I'll just lay down some quick biostats for you. Guyana hosts more than 6,000 plant species, about 130 species of amphibians, about 179 species of reptiles, over 800 species of birds, which I was told is being revised, so it might even be more than that, about 225 species of mammals, over 5,000 species of fish, including this absolutely beautiful fish known as the arapaima, which is the largest freshwater scaled fish in the region, and about 1,600 species of arthropods. And then when we think about this in the context of Ghana itself, Ghana ranks 3rd in the world for the country with the most forest cover to total land area. So that's about 94% forest cover. And it's in the top 2 countries that have the most forest cover, which are both Ghana Shield nations. So with that being said, obviously the question has to be asked, how can Ghana benefit from its resources without losing it, considering how biodiverse rich Ghana is? Well, that's where my research comes in. So I look at a particular area within resource use in Ghana known as reduced impact logging. It's always been pushed as best practice forestry because of its sustainable operations that take place. So RIL, as it's commonly referred to, is intensely planned logging operations, which involves the selective removal of select hardwood timber species, which is all planned through a pre-harvest inventory. And then directional felling. So once everything is planned, they'll go in and remove these specific species via directional felling. And this is all in order to minimize forest damage. And what you find happening is the forest gaps that are created within your overall forested area tend to mimic natural tree fall. So in a way, you're conserving the overall landscape of the forested area while selectively removing harvest species that you want to profit off of. So a way that we can manage this is through the floral aspect, yes, but also through the faunal aspect, which is where my research focuses. And how we do this is by monitoring wildlife species and their overall population trends and community assemblages. Though opponents of this argue that community assemblage isn't enough evidence of biodiversity recovery within these logged areas, for my research, we propose a spatial perspective of change in assemblages through time. And I'll give you an idea of what that looks like. So as a quick framework of understanding, once you have logging being stopped within an area, which is what reduced impact logging does, you call it a silvicultural cycle. So you'll log an area, then stop, then leave it to regenerate. So with time, what happens is you're going to have forest regeneration within 2 key areas. You have your direct impact and your indirect impacts. Now, forest regeneration, in terms of the direct impact, is going to influence resource availability. So as you have trees being removed, you have forest gaps, and that forest gaps allows light to penetrate the forest floor, and you have resource blooms. This resource availability would then influence community assemblage change of your population dense taxa, so birds and bats especially, because these animals directly depend on these resources in order to survive and flourish within these logged areas especially. And then you have indirect impacts. So these are looking at man-made structures within your logged areas, such as logging roads. Now, when reduced impact logging stops within these forested areas, there may be continued old road access. And this allows for operations such as monitoring and then planning of future plots to continue, because you need continued access into your highly dense forest area. So continued old road access can indirectly impact populations such as large mammals, because unfortunately logging has a very naughty little cousin that follows it along, known as hunting. And sometimes with old road access, what you find is that hunters have an ease of access into your forested areas, and their prey of choice are usually large mammals to substitute for bushmeat trading and the bushmeat industry. So overall, what's happening is you have a feedback mechanism being formed, whereby your community assemblage response through time is influencing the level of forest regeneration that's occurring, because your wildlife that you're monitoring are usually principal seed dispersers for that area. So what RIL tends to do is we want to limit that and prevent that from hitting a point where these wildlife communities can't respond well or revive themselves with time. And in the end, what we should have been happening is a community response that resembles pre-logging levels or something close to it. So you have this nice balance between using a resource and also the wildlife benefiting from the resource still being there, essentially. So where did we go and what did we do for this research? So we went to a place called Arianne-Elise. The Arianne rainforest is located in Region 8 of Guyana. Was usually called the Green Heart of Guyana because it's right dead smack in the center there. And the Arianne is really special because the forest is divided into a sustainable use area and a wilderness preserve. So our research took place in the sustainable use area, where RIL is the principal logging activity that is done. It's not the only sustainable practice Arianne does, but it's one of the major ones that gets a lot of attention. So we did research within the logged area where we went to sampling plots in post-harvest areas, and then we compared the bird, bat, and large mammal community assemblage to unlogged rainforest. And the interesting thing about is the people that we included. So we included a lot of the indigenous communities within that area, because one of the things Arianne stands for is approaching conservation with a community dynamic. So you'll find that the Makushi indigenous tribes within the Arianne rainforest are a key part of this research expedition. And overall, we would have found some amazing animals that are residing within the Arianne rainforest through both mist netting procedures and camera trapping for our large mammals. What we've noticed so far is that with Arianne, they have an extensive database whereby they would have a temporal look of how their biodiversity response is occurring due to their sustainable activities. And for their logged forests, what we've noticed before is that there are idiosyncratic behaviors in the bird and bat communities in response to the disturbance. And this has been attributed more to the strata, so whether it's canopy, subcanopy, or understory, and the differences in feeding gill that are generating this response. And these responses were concluded to be more attributed to natural turnover as opposed to logging. So there really wasn't much of a conclusion that logging especially was the cause or the driver of how our bird and bat communities were responding. And then for large mammals, there was the indirect pressure, such as unregularized hunting, that was impacting mammal communities, but not to a level that was extremely alarming. But then again, there was no direct pressure of logging that was influencing the mammal community to that extent. So overall, the observed changes in the communities weren't conclusive for reduced impact logging. So that's what research before has found. What we want to understand now is the temporal perspective. So knowing that regeneration is occurring, how do the populations respond in a time frame comparison? And is this a key way to explain those idiosyncratic behaviors that I mentioned previously? And then for the large mammals, does the continued access of logging roads and skid trails, is it doing more harm than good? So do we have regeneration occurring on those skid trails? Are some of them open versus are some of them closed? And which one do the mammals prefer? And then we have a spatial perspective. So we're looking at the impact of the logging specifically per sample plot that we did within the overall for the logged forest compartment. And then we're comparing each sample plot to each other and then seeing whether the community assemblages within those sample plots are more for natural turnover, like previously mentioned, or is there a gradual disturbance impact response due to the logging intensity in these specific plots. And then again, for mammals, it regards the number of roads and trails that the mammals will traverse on. So how many open versus closed roads, how many of them are close to each other, how many of them are close to a major road that people can access. So these are the two key areas that we're investigating, and we're using models to generate a statistically significant response of how these population dynamics are moving within the Arianne rainforest. So with that being said, there are some challenges to the land of many wildlife communities. With an area as diversely rich as Guyana, there are obviously going to be so many challenges that Guyanese will face. And namely, these four stick out to me particularly. So there is the challenge of urban expansion. Guyana, although it is a beautiful country to come and witness, to live in, it is still a developing country, and therefore the government of Guyana will put economic and urban expansion at the forefront of its efforts to make Guyana a better place. So there is the question of how far this urbanization will go and what impacts can that have to its biodiversity-rich regions. Then there's also the threat of illegal logging and mining, which unfortunately Arianne has experienced recently when it comes to illegal mining in the area, specifically for gold. So there are a lot of cases whereby the more biodiversity rich an area is, the more likely you're going to have some not so nice things happening, because if it's biodiversity rich on top of the soil, it's got to be rich below the soil as well. So there have been a lot of illegal activities in accordance with that. And then we have the oil and gas sector. Of course, a lot of people now know about Ghana because of the oil and gas industry. And then the question of how will Ghana respond in the long term with the oil and gas sector? Ghana is still pretty young in terms of development, in terms of independence, in terms of being part of the oil industry. So there's a lot of questions as to will Ghana's biodiversity suffer at the expense of gaining oil wealth? So that's one of the challenges that we still face in Guyana. And then there's one that I always debate with my colleagues over, which is the future of academia in Guyana. There does exist a lack of research in key regions in Guyana, and that's partly due to the extent at which or the remoteness of some of these areas in Ghana. So there's still a lot to be learned, and that isn't just for inland areas, that's also for aquatic systems as well. So the University of Ghana really does try its best to bridge that gap and try to output academics that can make informed research-oriented decisions to help the Guyanese government with its expansion plans and overall plans for Ghana's future. But I will not be a gloomy cloud. Thank you, Mr. Toad. There is a lot of hope when it comes to Guyana's sustainable development and Guyana's biodiversity, and it rests solely in the people, the Guyanese people, and then there are the international counterparts that have an invested interest in Guyana with their cooperation, with their commitment, with their research. We can help inform and place measures that can see Guyana to a very sustainably rich future, whilst also preserving the land of many wildlife communities, that I think is the best way forward for Guyana as a whole. And with that being said, let's connect. So if you'd like to know more about Arianne, where I do my research, you can find them at arianne.org. They're also an ecotourism area. So when COVID is over, you can plan a trip, come to Guyana. If you want to learn more about the University of Guyana and the research that it outputs, you can visit their website. And then I have all my socials down below. Let's connect. Tell me what you think. Send me an email. Follow me on Instagram. Follow Arianne on Instagram. Send me a tweet. And with that being said, thank you so much. Sorry for the glitches with technology at the beginning, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Wow, really interesting research and a really new and fascinating place to go visit as a tourist looking to learn about a really biodiverse place. And
Yep.
I'd love to know, like, what are, you say there's lots of mammals, you do work on bats, there's lots of different species. If I was walking in the rainforest where you do your research, what animals would I expect to see?
Oh, that is a great question. Well, it's going to depend on the time of day. One of the animals that you're going to hear before you even see it is the screaming peahaw, which I think a lot of people have heard this bird before, even though you're not really sure what it looks like. If you've ever listened to any sort of nature documentary and you hear this beautiful kind of, I can't even explain it. It's like a very, I can't explain it, but it's a really beautiful sound. And as soon as you hear it, you think, oh, I'm in a rainforest. That's how iconic the bird sound is. If you're just walking through the rainforest, you might hear them before you see them again, but that's howler monkeys, and then there are also these spider monkeys. Spider monkeys, there's a little bit of a chance that they're going to be, well, not a little bit, a lot of a chance that they're going to be a little hostile towards you. But it is really fun to see. They'll usually shake branches and give you this territorial display. And it's so mesmerizing to watch because there'll be like two in front of you and then another one behind you, and you're just engulfed in them. But there's the odd chance that they might throw poop at you, but don't worry, I've only had that happen to me once.
Oh no. Oh wow. Well, I'm sure it's really fun to get to do what you do all day long. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about your art, and how you use that in combination with your 50% conservation world.
Oh yeah, sure. So I grew up in a household that is very art and science oriented. My grandfather was a Guyanese cartoonist. And so I really had an introduction to art before I had an introduction to conservation. He also used to look at National Geographic documentaries and stuff. But how I bridge the gap between art and conservation is through this interesting educational awareness thing whereby I try to show a kind of empathetic side to nature by illustrating it in a way that is very digestible for social media and just the general public who don't necessarily have an conservation background. And then in addition to that, I have been a part of some wonderful projects. One that I recently was a part of was called Where Did All the Animals Go? Which was an initiative by an artist in the UK, whereby she's trying to get young children to appreciate wildlife, especially endangered wildlife, by drawing them. And then once they're drawn, she posts it up on a gallery for people to come and see. So it relates back to that, to, you know, the little warm heart inside of you that probably doesn't know the science behind it, but you know the human side to it and the empathy towards it. So that's a lot of what I try to do with my art overall.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's really necessary because, as you said, Guyana's a developing country, and there's going to be lots of decisions to make about how to sustainably extract resources and build the economy. And it sounds like the work that you're doing, both the scientific research, but also the awareness using art and other education and outreach programs will encourage this. It sounds like people are excited about the idea of sustainably developing and using their this amazing biodiverse area.
Definitely. I think as we progress as a species, on a whole, you're not going to stop development. But instead, what we should focus our efforts on is how to continue development sustainably, and remember that we're not the only species that inhabits this earth, and to just give a little consideration to the little house wren outside that just wants, just wants a meal or just wants to sleep in somewhere nice and cozy for the rest of its life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the work you're doing is really fantastic. Any things that we should be looking out for, or what's next for you on the horizon?
Oh, that is a really good question and one that my supervisors always ask. But my main goal right now is finishing up my PhD, getting this research out into the general public so that they can see the work that we've done. So yeah, beyond that, it is to give back to my country. Taking part in the building of the academic community within Guyana through the University of Guyana. So yeah, it's going to be a wild ride, but I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Well, we are so grateful to hear about Guyana and to hear about all the rich biodiversity species that live there. It sounds like it only continues to grow. So I will keep I'll keep my eye out for for how many more species are down there. Maybe one day I'll make it down there.
Yeah, for sure. In the non-COVID world that we can see on the horizon, definitely make a trip down.
I think we all should. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for the talk and for joining Global BioFest, and we'll hope to see you next year.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me. Enjoy the rest of the festival.
Yeah.